Hello, my name is Svatje and I'm going to walk you through the TraceCase app too. With the latest version 6.3, we have some fantastic new features for you and we will walk you completely through the app, including the new features. So what you can see here, I have my TraceCase installed here on TraceCase Fit. TraceCase app installed, and we go right to the TraceCase app. So anyone can download the app. It is free on the Google Play Store and the App Store. And I'm going to start with those features you can see with the TraceCase hardware not connected. So you can see in the upper left hand here, the TraceCase is not connected. And I will show you what you can do without having the hardware, which is already quite interesting, gives you a good glimpse into the features of it. First part here is the information button on the right bottom. So what important to know that you check the version you have installed. Make sure it's the latest version. Go back to update function if it's not the case. Okay, and then this is the complete information here about the app. What you can also see here is the documentation tab here. I think it's very important if you have questions, if you're not sure, if you want to go into details, you have everything in here, the fact sheet, the viewer, the TraceCase viewer manual, and also the app manual, so you can read again what is in the app, the operating instructions of the hardware device of the TraceCase itself, or even online reference videos. I think that's very helpful. I wanted to show you this. Then also support. You can share log files here using your email if you have something. So this is built-in direct access to the support team. That's very helpful, I guess. Okay. Going back to basic information is maybe not so interesting. Then here in this app settings dialog, you have here a dialog about the field strengths and the scaling factor. Depending on the antenna, you can manage your Wi-Fi connection. This is here enable access point mode. We go to that if I connect to the TraceCase. Then here you have the very new feature, live monitoring. I have enabled it here. You can enable or disable. I recommend to enable it because that's very helpful. We will see in short time. So keep it enabled. And then the geolocation feature, this is switched off as default setting. Sometimes it's very helpful because it gives you a concrete and exact position about where you have taken the trace, which is a good hint to what has happened there. But sometimes it's not so helpful because it takes data bandwidth and can cause connection issues under very certain conditions. So maybe switch it off as default part. That's about the app settings. Don't forget about the live monitoring. Okay, then what you can see here, the blue marked part here, option is saved sessions. And if you open it, you can see that you have sessions installed here. I have a filter here. I'll reset the filter so you can see all the sessions I have taken here. I have available here. I've taken 2 small sessions here, but I would like to draw your attention to the TraceCase demo session. When you install the TraceCase app too, it always comes with the TraceCase demo session. That way you can get a good idea of what a session taken gives you in this app here. So I'm going to open the session here, and then you can see some basic information about your recording time. You have the location here. If geolocation is switched on, you can, as far as it can, filter it down. Here we've made this here TraceCase demo user. There's no verdict in here. You can see the indication that also analog scope data is available. You might know that the TraceCase has a small digital storage oscilloscope. It records the envelope data for you. And in some situations, it's very helpful to do so because sometimes you might even have error handling so that the protocol looks fine, but you might even still have some issues on the physical or signaling level, or it's very helpful and gives you more information about errors which might occur. For contactless, there's a lot of dimensions in which you can communicate, so it's very, very helpful to have the analog scope for error detection and error analysis. Then I'd like to highlight this really because it's a very helpful feature. If you take a session and if you save it, you get a quality indication. So what the app checks is if it contains complete or incomplete frames and successfully executed APDUs, or just half APDUs, maybe only the command. So that is very, very useful if you are if your objective is to have complete session. That means a good communication only, and then you can see if you want to skip this session for further analysis, if you delete it directly, or if you decide to take another capture to have the chance to get better quality. So that's very, very useful. Save it, check it, okay, once again, for instance. Then you get your geoposition, then the antenna type. This comes with a scaling factor. So just a small information about this because it's the app, but it gives you the information. The antenna you can use, we have a choice of antennas, smaller, bigger, thinner, thicker, but every antenna has a scaling factor, and then this gives you a dimension into the analog scope data. So if you just have a look on the protocol exchange, not so important for you. It's maybe only important to say, would another antenna match the sensitivity settings better for better communication? That might be one factor, antenna size, but your scaling factor is for the analog scope measurements to have a dimension. Okay, gives you size about the file. So if you want to send it out to someone, how much data have you left on your subscription, or are you on Wi-Fi and allowed to send this away? And then the application TraceCase 2. And you also have a photo here, so you can add metadata on your trace. So if you edit this trace, you might even take another photo if you decide to change this. So you have to connect to the camera, could take a photo from a reader, for instance, or take this photo, or and say I want to retry, or say it's okay, or just leave this option. I would not want to save this here. So this is so much you can also add a comment to say I've checked it, or I don't know what other important information you have here, or add a verdict if you say this reading has been successful, this door has opened, this asset has been tracked, this tag has been read or been written. So you can add some information about what it has happened. That's if you take a lot of traces, it's very useful to have it. Then, and if you have a lot of traces, it's also very useful to be able to filter them. That was the setting before we took a look here. So you can say I want to have only traces with complete frames. Then it's the demo session trace here. You get the filter set activated here by this symbol. Or you can say any data that you see the symbol changes, or you can simply sort this by date or letter. That way you have the chance to faster look or scan through your the recordings taken. So it doesn't take a lot of time, so you pile up a lot of recordings. If you're out in the field doing field tracing, it's very helpful to orientate yourself where you are. So if you go into the session itself, you on the right hand side, you see an icon like a list or a protocol, notes taken. So this is where the view where you can see into the communication taken, how the app analyzes the communication captures. And this is here on the left hand side marked with the blue sign here. That is the frame level. You can click into a frame, and get frame details here. You get the timing for each frame when it occurred and about the frame delay time. These are standard measurements required by standardization bodies like Invico, for instance. And if you go in the middle, you see middle icon, that is the APDU, Application Programming Data Units view. So you see only here the commands and response paths exchanged. Here, important to know that the P here stands for poller. That's the NFC forum term, poller or reader, the part emitting information or controlling it. And then the L here is the part for the listener or pick or card. That is the listener is the NFC forum term. So that's the direction of the communication. If you click on that, you get the details on this command. It was exchanged successfully with state use word here 9000. You have the timings, you have the reader communication timings, card processing time, card communication time. So how much time takes it to send the response and how much time takes it to process the response after the command has been received from the card. So, then you get the information exchanged is parsed as far as possible, as far as publicly available information is here. And then there's a new feature, which you might have which the command here has prepared you maybe for, because you got some timings here. This is the percentage icon here. That is a new feature. It's the Invico tariff times. Invico has a standard where they say how much time does the transaction take. There's maximum 500 milliseconds, and there's also maximum for the terminals, how much time they have. And here you can control about which part has consumed which time of the allowed budget of 500 milliseconds. And the standard requires to have the total reader communication and processing times and also the site on the card. So that's a quick view into the information you immediately get when you have taken a capture. So this is quite a bunch of information. You can get some clues, you can draw conclusions from that. We try to make this as helpful as possible because we have a good and detailed and accurate device here, taking accurate captures, make the most of it. Okay, and then you see here the next from the right-hand side, the next symbol is like a PDF symbol. If you click on that, it prepares exporting a PDF file. If you have someone you want to send information or store this information also in another format, that's helpful. I think I try to go back here. So it processes a bit the time to prepare the PDF, to package this PDF, and then you can either save it on a file share here on your internal files here. I would put this into the internal storage. And there is also a TraceCase folder here, I can put it here, for instance. And then later on, use the standard ways to get data out of your smartphone. You can do same with a CSV file or with an XML file. But if we click, I show you, you can see no license found. Here's a license check in there. The XML file sharing is part of the toolbox, and that has a separate license. The XML file format gives you the advantage to process automate further analysis of the data taken. very useful. Then this is also, you can put this into the trash bin. I wouldn't do it, but we have covered you because you can download the TraceCase demo session from our website. So if you delete, not so difficult, but not very comfy. And then you have the sharing symbol here to share it with someone else. Usually you would try to email this to someone else. I would send it I would send it to this. I can send it to Comprion and also send it to my Gmail account. Then capture. So you can share this with someone else, and this person gets the TRS, or if you take the PDF file, you share the PDF file. And that's very useful because then someone else can take a look into it immediately. So if you have doubts yourself, if you have someone, if you are in the field and say, please take a look immediately into this because that's a very interesting trace here, some error happened or this went smoothly, I don't know what the problem is, can you take a look maybe at the analog file, are there any hiccups? That is the way you can use this. Or you can ask a partner, send them a trace case, please trace it, and then send the traces to me, the data. I'll take a look into the analysis and can tell you if this is okay or not. So quick check is very simple. Okay, so that is, I think, what you really can do with the saved sessions here if you are not connected to the hardware. And now I'm going to switch on the TraceCase. You have to connect via Wi-Fi. The TraceCase sets up a small Wi-Fi. So I choose here the TraceCase in the TraceCase fit. And then you get the indication that the internet is not available because it's a closed wireless LAN. Okay, so if you go back to the app now, you see here on the left-hand top side that the TraceCase is now connected and ready. You get an indication on the right-hand side about the battery level. So if it goes down and you're outside, that's not very nice. Take several batteries with you to be flexible. Here you can see if you have to change it, yes or no. Before you start tracing, you want to configure your trace. There's a default configuration here, or that's not default. That's the default configuration. It decodes the NFC types A, F, and B. This is type V. That stands for vicinity, the latest added NFC type in NFC forum. This bridges the RFID or logistics words for most of all with the NFC world, so vicinity, proximity. So it takes the proximity part of the vicinity communication, and it's very useful because then you can take your smartphone for any type of RFID type, talking type V or vicinity, and so for a tag, then you can use it with the standard vicinity readers or terminals, but also with a smartphone that reaches to consumers, for instance, using this or interacting with a product. Okay, then below you find the detection level. The detection level, you can set this, but the presetting is quite useful because it covers the biggest range of communication. You might want to change it, but that's advanced stuff, so it's not for a walk through the app. So just take just keep in mind this session setting here is quite useful and quite helpful for the majority of communication types. And then you can switch on the analog scope. This is the digital storage oscilloscope of the TraceCase. You have the typical analog scope setting, the sample depth. The default is here 8K, and I think it's quite useful. If it's less samples, it's not enough. I think it's too short. If it's more samples, you have to take care about the storage capacity. Then the sample rate is similar. In terms of storage capacity, the the best sample rate, the most detailed or most accurate sample rate is 1/FC. That means one measurement per oscillation, and that's very useful if you really want to look into details of an error which you think is on the signaling level, or if you have to identify or exclude that there's nothing on or nothing wrong with the signaling. It's useful to go, sample depth, you can go up to 4/FC, but after that it's not recommended because then the information level is too rough. So recommended, most detailed is 1/FC, and then below that you can have two triggers. So the trigger is when does the analog scope start capturing. This is here now manual. I don't know why. The standard, I think the default setting is carrier on. That is there any polar or reader active. You can also set it to sub carrier on, because you can say I want to make sure that both start communication. So that's what you can set here. And then you can set a second trigger, either hop between these two triggers and say this or that one, or preset them very quickly, or also decide for a trigger communication with and or after. So that's then also possible, gives you maximum of ways to look into the physical interface and signaling of your communication. Then also very useful, but I think if you have analog scope or oscilloscope features, very common is the trigger position. Do you want to have this in the middle, 50% before and after, or 1/8 or 7/8? So what is the position where you take the data in relation to the trigger? Okay, so I decide not to make the analog scope, and I want to have type A and B, and then you save your settings, and this is the preparation for taking a trace. But you might not be very sure about is there any communication going on, and or B, where is the best way to trace? So where do I put my antenna? And this is that. Therefore, we have a feature which is called measure field strength. This measurement is depending on the antenna. You saw there's a scaling factor. And here I have the TraceCase fit. That way it's connected to my smartphone. NFC is on in my smartphone. That way I always trace the communication which is active in my smartphones. That is the polar functionality is sending signals to see if there is any communication around. And if I put it here, you can see that there's also subcarrier signal in the field, and if you go away, you don't have a subcarrier signal. If I switched off my NFC here, then there is no communication, I think, then you don't see anything because my NFC is switched off. Okay, so if you stop this now, you say I have seen the point where that there is communication at all, or where the sweet spot or the best place is to trace. If you have the chance to, when you're in the field doing undercover tracing, that's not available. But if you have the chance to, make sure you get the best traces. So then you could say, I want to start tracing. I want to see what's going on here. So, and remember, I set on live monitoring. You see here this small symbol with a running human. And therefore, you can see live that communication is going on. So that way you have control that you get the data or get the type of communication you were looking for. So this is very, very simple here because it's a reader and the tag. It just selects the tag. It's not a big thing here, but it gives you the chance to check what's going on. If I take the tag out of the field, you see that the reader is just polling, is there anyone around here? So, and I think the live monitoring is a really excellent feature. I'm really happy about this. And If you don't need it, then you choose this icon and you can see just, is there any communication? You have a signal indication and then the symbol that this tracing is still going on. Okay, that's up to you what you need, what your objective is. You can hop whatever is your need, and yeah, then you can say stop tracing. This moves here to the end of the communication. Then you can say stop tracing, and then it automatically downloads the session. That means the TraceCase doesn't store the data. It just stores just the capture and then transfers it via Wi-Fi to your smartphone where you have more storage. And here you can see that you can enter information about the location, the user. So I have taken this. If you have several persons in the field, or you have a service giving several trace cases away to say do field testing for me, you might want to see who has taken it. You can make a small comment. You can take the terminal type. I have here the ACS reader, for instance. That might be helpful, and you can give a verdict saying nothing passed or failed. So if you say it read successfully the tag, that's okay. Or you say the door was not opened, or the payment transaction did not pass, so you can make a failed and say this is not okay. As I've shown you before, you can take a photo, whatever is important for you to add information to your trace, but be aware how much space you have left here for saving this. But you get an indication about the size of the session. Okay, and I've saved it. If you go to saved sessions, there's no filter activated here. I say date descending. I have the most recent on top. So this is what you can see, what we have seen before, but it's no fake. It works really. ACS terminal, I am the user. I said it's a failed verdict, and I haven't set any analog scope here. It contains incomplete and unsuccessfully frames. Why is it that way? I have neared my trace case to the reader, to where the communication takes place during the trace transaction. So you capture also incomplete frames. That's usually the case. Antenna type setting, scaling factor. Here I've told you get the size of the trace, and you have a small photo here, and you have the application version. Yeah, so this is the last point to say I need to update the app maybe. Okay, and then here the features are available as shown in the demo session. Here you have the frame level. You can go into the details. You get the direction of the communication. This is the APDU level. So the APDU level, there was just one select, but I didn't catch it. And then you have here the information, the timings, reader and card communication measured together. So this is about, then you say if you find I want to add something else after taking a look, then you might say it's a kiosk, a self-service kiosk, whatever you find important to add here. Maybe this is what you can add later on, and then you might decide to share it with someone else, or you say okay, it's not very interesting what I've taken here, I make another trace, I just delete it. I can say okay, goodbye, don't want to have it. Okay, yes, we have seen several times. We have seen the live monitoring, and then there's another feature of the new app that is here. You can see like a button here at the bottom, a button that is, you can switch off the trace case. There's a soft button. So switch off trace case. Some people asked for it. Sometimes it's not so obvious that you have to press a bit longer on the trace case, and this is a quick one here, saving battery, and you say goodbye. So you see no trace case connected. And yeah, that's the latest feature of the new app version. And I think, well, that is so much here for the TraceCase app walkthrough on the Android. And yeah, happy to get a lot of questions and feedback on this session here. Thank you.